He says the ghost of Abuelito comes to him when he's afraid. His spirit comes down from the stars, still smells of coffee and cigars. But when he is there, Miguel is brave. Abuelito wanted it that way.
Hello and welcome. I am Sharon Carter and you're watching Local Indie Live, and we're thrilled today to have a duo with us, Kristen Grainger and her partner Dan Wetzel. And Kristen, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you formed the duo.
Well, so first things first, Dan and I met through music. Years ago, we both were in completely different jobs. We both lived in Salem, but completely different worlds that would never have collided if not for music. And once we met, we started playing a little bit of music together and realized that we were greater than the sum of our parts. We really had, each of us brought something different, but we had enough in common in terms of our taste in music and the kinds of music we wanted to play, that we instantly hit it off and started playing music together. And then we fell in love and we got married, and we combined our families and started also playing a lot of music out as a duo, and then decided we might form a band, and had brought in a number of bluegrass players that Dan knew. Dan came from kind of more of a bluegrass orientation than I did. And once we formed True North was the name of our 4 or 5 piece band, depending on what year that was. And we've been playing ever since. We've made 8 albums and had been traveled all over the place and had just a wonderful adventure playing music together.
Sweet story.
You want to add anything to that?
It really, we're lucky that our musical relationship is kind of what started, because it made it so much easier to proceed as musicians, even after we were a married couple. We always had that as our core. We've spent more hours in front of our kitchen sink where the acoustics are best, honing songs and learning songs, and it's just been wonderful. We're constantly looking at each other after 26 years of doing this and say, I can't believe we get to do this together. And it's so easy to coordinate. We just have the one schedule to say, do we want to do this? Okay, let's do it, rather than checking with 5 other bandmates or something. So
no spouse left behind.
Right. Right. So the first song that we're going to talk about is The Sound of Losing You. What can you tell me about that in the writing process?
Well, that song is one in a long succession of songs. I'm trying to accumulate every sad song, or write any missing sad songs that need to exist in the universe. I love sad songs. I'm not sure what it is about them. It must be the Irish in me, but I really love sad songs. And that song was inspired by the number of grown children who I know who are not speaking to their parents, or the number of parents whose children are not speaking to them, and how hard it is to manage that and how to feel about that. And so I wrote that song about all of the things that you regret about how a relationship ends. And it's not as if someone has passed away, it's just that they're no longer in your life and you have no ability to change that fact. So that's what I wrote it about. I wrote it as part of this new album that we made called Time and Materials. It's a brand new album. It just came out in June. And it's just acoustic duo album. So it's Dan and me and 5 instruments. Dan built all the instruments. And we just stood up in the studio and sang it. We didn't have any gadgets or special effects or anything. It's just the real stuff, the basic bare bones essence of True North.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. There's a crack in the mirror that hangs in the hall. When the door slammed behind you, it fell off the wall. Now my reflection looks nothing at all like it used to. I'm always awake between midnight and 3. That's when all my mistakes get replayed in 3D. Set to the soundtrack of you versus me like we used to. Wheels on a suitcase, wheels on a runway. The house has gone quiet like a church on a Monday. It's a clock in the kitchen, tick-tocking my life away too. That's the sound of losing you. Of your laughter, the well of your sighs, the width of your shoulders, the depth in your eyes. Your big friendly heart you bestowed like a prize, but I dropped it. Wheels on a suitcase, wheels on a runway. The house has gone quiet like a church on a Monday. It's a clock in the kitchen, tick-tocking my life away too. That's the sound of losing you. Echoes of happiness fade with the sound of a train in the distance that's out of here bound. Along with the hope that what's lost can be found if you want it. Wheels on a suitcase, wheels on a runway. The house has gone quiet like a church on a Monday. It's a clock in the kitchen, tick-tocking my life away too. That's the sound of losing you. That's the sound of losing you.
That was the sound of losing you. So next we're going to listen to The Ghost of Abuelito. Can you tell us a little bit about the song?
Sure. That song has a kind of a complicated and auspicious beginning. And in 2018, the news broke the story of children being separated from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. And it came to light because a group of attorneys assigned by a court because of a court case went into a detention center and discovered that large numbers of children were being taken from their families and taken from the parents who had accompanied them and kept away from them, and then parents deported. It was a deliberate policy, deliberately cruel, as a way to dissuade people from bringing their children, bringing their families across the border seeking asylum. And that policy was discovered by a local attorney. She was one of the attorneys assigned to inspect the detention center, Warren Binford. She was a professor of law at Willamette University, and she was a good friend of mine. And she called me up and said, at that time I was working in media. I was working as the communications director for Governor Brown. And she called me up and said, I have this story that has to reach the public immediately. Here's what's going on. And she told me about the detention center and the children who had been neglected and were really emotionally and physically unwell because of this experience. 8 of them died during the time the story was breaking. And she said, can you help me get this story to the media? And of course, that's what I was doing for a living. So I said, yes, these are the things you need to do, and got her lined up with talking points, and here are the connections, and helped her connect the dots with the media, and the story broke. But the problem with that is then I knew all of that horrible things, all the horrible things that our country had been doing in my name and your name and all of our names. And it was really hard to live with that knowledge. It was really upsetting, and the best way for me to process it was to write that song about it. Now, the interesting thing about that story in the song is written from the point of view of a 7-year-old girl and her 11-year-old brother. And the reason why I was able to tell an articulate story about that is because all of the interviews that the investigative team did in the detention center were redacted and then posted online so people could read them and see what was happening. And Neil Young said publicly, okay, artists, okay, musicians, this is what you do. When something like this happens, we make art, so go make art. So I wrote this song after having read those accounts, and it's an amalgam of children's stories. They clearly had no idea what was happening, and their parents had no idea. And once they were separated, there was no contact. So that said, it was therapeutic for me to write it, but it ended up having this little life of its own, where we, Dan and I, it was during COVID that it really kind of, by the time I got it written and recorded and distributed, it got this own life of its own. But during COVID, we couldn't really play it out in public that much. So we played it a few places that were broadcasting via Zoom, and then we participated in many Zoom meetings to conferences for people who are children's therapists, for people who support children and families in migration, doctors, social workers, psychotherapists, and other artists. And we played at a huge conference online, and then one conference we went on to the University of Colorado and played for a conference of those kinds of professionals there. Just that song, it got it was recognized by Paul Stuckey, Noel Paul Stuckey from Peter, Paul and Mary. He puts together the year's best social justice songwriting, an album of those songs every year, and it was one of the ones that he chose for that album. And then Common Ground on the Hill, which is a organization, a nonprofit that also builds community through music. They chose it as their song of the year and flew my band out to be the band in residence last summer to teach people how to write songs, teach people how to sing harmony, and to help build community through songs like that. It also became part of a documentary they were making about children being separated from their parents at the border. So it's one of those songs that I'm really glad I wrote for my own mental health, but also, as a person who wants to get things done, who wants to fix things, I've always been that kind of person, wants to find solutions. Just writing a song wasn't going to be enough. So I'm glad it got out to other people and it became part of larger scrutiny about these policies, and they ended those policies, but now they're back again. So that's unfortunate.
Right. It's a powerful song that needs to be heard.
Thank you.
Still relevant today.
And Dan did some really great arranging on that song too. You want to talk a little bit about how we made that recording?
Well, we first recorded that on our Ghost Tattoo album, which is a full band album. So we wanted to have it be something that had the energy behind it without being a fast song that's distracting. So we had to come up with an arrangement that was kind of driven and had a lot of tempo to it without losing the story. All of our arrangements, the biggest goal is to keep the story that Kristen is telling out front and find the best way to support that. And that's what we did with that. And Marty, who was in our band, played some great mandolin and fiddle on there, and Josh with a bass part. And it just had a real nice cohesive groove with some tension in it, because that's what that story has.
Right. Well done.
Thank you.
Miguel, my brother, he's 11. I am Alma, I am 7. old enough to remember home. The sound of gunfire in the night, an ordinary part of life, at least the only life I've ever known. Miguel refused to cry the day we headed north from Ecuador, the USA. Even when we gave our dog away, even after throwing stones to make her stay. He says the ghost of Abuelito comes to him when he's afraid. His spirit comes down from the stars, still smells of coffee and cigars. But when he is there, Miguel is brave. Abuelito wanted it that way. Across the border, things got tense, with our backs against the fence, all those uniforms and guns. Americanos took our mother in one direction and us the other, and we haven't seen our mother since. Inside, 100 babies cry, and I can't stop myself from always asking why. When will my mama come to get me? Did she go off and forget me? And Miguel just takes my hand and sighs. He says the ghost of Abuelito comes to us when we're afraid. His spirit comes down from the stars, still smells of coffee and cigars. But when he is there, we'll both be brave. Abuelito wanted it that way. He says Abuelito told him, America will always take you in. Her gates are guarded by a goddess. She welcomes you no matter where you've been. Minutes to hours, days to weeks, Miguel, my brother, hardly speaks. Bit by bit, he's disappearing. I asked him if he'd say the prayer, the one that brings Abuelito here. He says Abuelito's hard of hearing. Inside, 100 babies cry. The ones that are old enough to talk keep asking why. When will my mama come to get me? Did she go off and forget me? And I take their tiny hands and lie. I say the ghost of Los Abuelos guard us as we sleep under the moon. Abuelos hate to see us suffer. They're out searching for our mothers, and they'll bring our mothers soon. Abuelos hate to see us suffer. They're out searching for our mothers, and they'll bring our mothers soon.
You've just listened to The Ghost of Abuelito. Next, we'll be listening to Doris Dean. Can you tell us a little bit about Doris Dean?
Sure. Doris Dean was actually my maternal grandmother, and she was originally, when she was born, she was named something other than Doris Dean. And when her parents took her to this Wild West show, she was 3 weeks or a month old or something like that. They took her to a Wild West show. Remember those old shows where they had parades of tribal people in full ceremonial dress, and they had bronc riders, and they had all different kinds of rodeo type events. Part circus, part rodeo, as they say in the song. Mm-hmm. And the ringmaster said, "Next, please welcome Doris Dean." And this trick rider came in, and she had a foot on each horse, 2 horses, and rode in to spangly outfit and everything. And apparently my great-grandmother said to my great-grandfather, "That's it, we're changing her name." So she was named after that trick rider.
Wonderful story.
Yeah, thank you.
My name's Doris Dean. I was born in 1917. I turned 90 years old today, or it could have been yesterday. I really couldn't say. My mother named me Doris Dean for a trick rider she had seen at some kind of old-time Wild West show. It was part circus, part rodeo. Don't have those anymore. That's something that I wish I'd seen. The brave and beautiful Doris Dean perform feats of courage and grace, and never break a sweat, every hair in place. Wish I could learn to ride like that in a split skirt, star-spangled cowboy hat. Maybe everything would have turned out differently for me. Doris Dean McConaughey. Farming beans out in Oregon got us through the Depression. Then the winter I turned 23. I married Robert McConaughey. He ran the cannery. 3 months later, maybe 4, Rob went off to fight the big war. Shot down on the Sea of Japan, or so said the telegram I got from Uncle Sam. That's something that I wish I'd seen. The brave and beautiful Doris Dean perform feats of courage and grace, and never break a sweat, big smile on her face. Wish I could learn to ride like that in a satin shirt and star-spangled cowboy hat. Maybe everything would have turned out differently for me. Doris Dean McConaughey. Sometimes I lie here thinking, and sometimes I just lie. Pretend that there's some greater plan. It's not my place to wonder why. Oh, but 9 years later, I must petition my creator. Is this all there is, this hill of beans for lesser of 2 Doris Deans? 'Cause that's some that I wish I'd been, the brave and beautiful Doris Dean, who could look back with courage and grace and see my ordinary life was no disgrace. Sure, I could learn to ride like that, though I'd probably do without that cowboy hat. Maybe then I'd see it all differently. And me, Doris Dean McConaughey. Doris Dean McConaughey. Wheels on a suitcase, wheels on a runway. The house has gone quiet like a church on